Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Submission Radio Live. I shaved my face last night. I know. I'm looking at myself as I'm speaking, and I'm like, it was a mistake. But here we are. I look like some kind of like middle-aged teenager that's like aged really badly, but I got a baby face. I'm Dennis Shkaradov. Welcome to Submission Radio Live. I'm joined by a couple of very special guests here on the program. First man here, by the way, I'm still sick. I don't know what's going on. First man here, I want to introduce from, what an extended intro. First man here I want to introduce from MMA fighting. He kills it every single week. I especially loved his awesome video with Derek Lewis where they were playing golf, kicking back. One of the most exciting new sort of segments in MMA. He now joins me live here on the program. Mike Heck, welcome to the show, my friend.
You do have a baby face, so you got that going for you. And it's great to be back. Always fun to chop it up with you and other great members of the MMA media space. And luckily, there's lots to talk about. So excited to get into it.
That's right. Joining us also here today, a man that kills it over there in his part of the world with severe MMA, of course. Can't wait to see what this man has to say about some of the latest breaking news as well. What about this? Sheehan, you're back. You're back for more.
Back for more abuse. The most hated man in submission radio, YouTube comments is back for more. Yeah, as Mike said, joined today, or joined sometimes by some of the best in the MMA media community, and also me today. So
come on. I love the t-shirt, by the way, that you got back there in the corner. The striking, grappling, aggression, control, severe MMA t-shirt. Good.
There were for sale at one stage. I think there's one left. So if anyone wants one,
signed potentially or worn.
No, signed. You want it ruined? Sure, no problem. Sign and forget.
Well, we start things with some breaking news for me anyway, because it's 7 a.m. here in Australia. People wondering what was going to happen with Movsar, people wondering what was going to happen with Aaron Pico, and people wondering what was going to happen with Alex Volkanovski. Well, we saw that Joe Lopez was on a local podcast here, Who the Fuck, talking about that Alex Volkanovski's eye is still not good, that he still cannot fight, that he's still a little way off from being ready. And then we saw this fight being made official. Look at this MMA fighting graphic right here. Movsar Evloev, a great website, versus Aaron Pico. 5 rounds. And Mike Heck, Dana White also saying there's a potential that Movsar gets the title shot if he wins here. What do you make of this fight? Potentially happening, not happening, potentially happening, not happening. And now we got it for 5 rounds. Dana White actually says there's a chance here for Movsar to get the title shot with a win.
Yeah, see, the word was likely, which means it's still not a given. And this whole Movsar thing it's all Dana's fault. Like, it's 100% his fault, because I still think to this day at UFC 297, when he was asked about Movsar Evloev, he confused him with somebody else, and he confused his fight with Arnold Allen with a different fight that happened on that card, because that card was not good. It was a slow roll all the way to the end. Like, luckily DDP and Strickland had just a super close fight, so it gave us something to talk about. But yeah, Movsar gets his fight, I guess. He wants to keep moving along, and he gets Aaron Pico. And when this fight first got rumored, I liked it. Like, I really liked it. And it makes no sense, because Movsar should have already fought for the belt. And the fact that he has to fight again is a little bit annoying. But if he has to fight anybody, Aaron Pico is like the perfect dude for him to fight, because Aaron's going to come in with a lot of hype. And anybody who paints Movsar with the boring brush, you're not going to be able to do that in this fight, because I think if Movsar wins, like, this is going to be a banger. And there's a real chance Movsar wins big if he wins this fight. So I think this is the best. This is such a great opportunity for Movsar to have an exciting fight, to prove that I was wrong. And if he can go out there and finish Aaron Pico, if he can put a finish on his record during this impressive streak, especially now with Volkanovski waiting for his next opponent, like, it's just absolutely massive for him. And what an opportunity for Aaron Pico, who could slide himself into a freaking UFC title fight in just his second UFC bout if he could hand Movsar his first loss. So yeah, it's happening. I liked it from the beginning. Outside of Movsar should have already fought for the belt, but if we're not getting Movsar getting a title fight right now, Aaron Pico works just fine for me.
Sean, break this fight down for us. I mean, you've seen Pico do his thing a billion times. You know Movsar well. Can Pico beat Movsar here?
course he can. Yeah, Pico is a very talented guy, but as we've seen him as well, he can also lose fights. I like it depends where Pico is at this stage of his career, because we see, we saw with Patchy Mix a couple of weeks ago. We've seen him a lot of fighters who've been kind of, out of the mix for a while, to excuse the pun. And coming back into it, and it's tough to kind of come back in after a lot of unknowns. You don't know what promotion you're going to be fighting at, who you're going to be fighting, and coming, into a big fight like the fight against Evliev. It's not going to be an easy one. Like, Mike made an interesting point there about Evliev and the way people look at him. Like, I look at Evliev in this way. I don't think he's a boring fighter or anything like that. He's a very talented fighter. But when Ilia Topuria was atop that division, I was like, Movsar is a good fighter, but he's never going to beat Ilia Topuria. Like, he's again, very good, but not that good. I think Topuria is the best fighter in the world by a bit now at this stage. With Islam Makhachev, obviously, maybe not too far behind him. But now that, I know disrespect. I know maybe the listeners of this specific show might like what I'm about to say, but like Volkanovski,
I know,
is a little bit older now. He lost to Topuria, and even though he obviously performed very well in his last fight, I think that Evliev Volkanovski fight is a fight I would love to see. The Topuria Evliev doesn't really do much for me, because I kind of think I know who's going to win. Now I'll probably pick Volkanovski to win that fight, but on this fight, do you know what I like about this fight? I like the fact that Volkanovski's out and Evliev's fighting again. Because how many times have we seen it down through the years? A guy waits, and then someone else takes a chance. Like, Aaron Pico's going to take another fight. Imagine if they put him in there with, I don't know, Diego Lopez or whoever it might be, and he beats them, and then everyone's saying he should be the next guy, and Evliev misses out anyway. So I like it that way. For Pico, he's a really talented striker now, and we know the rest of the acumen. Like the final 10 was on the other day, I think it's called in America, where they were picking the Olympic team for whenever it's coming up, or the world team for whenever it's coming up in a while. And his name was mentioned around there as well, because of the young kid that won from high school, who beat one of the I think a 4-time reigning NCAA champion, or whatever it was. That's the type of athlete that we're dealing with here. A guy who was a phenom from a young age. And we all know about the Golden Gloves and all. And of course, he had setbacks in his career. But what we have now is a fighter in his peak. Aaron Pico is ready to hit the ground running. Is this a little bit too high for him? Would I have liked maybe to see him fight the number 15, the number 7, and then fight Evliev? Maybe. I think that might have been a better way to do it. But I always criticize the UFC for not taking chances with fighters like this at times. And not all the time, but sometimes you have to put a guy right in there. And as you said, if he beats Evliev, he's next in line for the title. That's a good place to put someone like Aaron Pico, I think. So I'm all for this fight. I think it'll be fun.
There's two other things that I love about this. One,
what is it, Mikey?
It debunks the Yair Rodriguez bullshit, because him fighting for a title against Volkanovski after beating an older pit bull is just, it did not scratch me where I itch at all. It was absolutely ridiculous. And I was told, even when those reports are coming out, that there wasn't a lot of truth to that. In fact, Volkanovski continued to lay out the red carpet for Evliev. And now we understand why that fight's not happening officially, because Volk's going to be shelved for a little bit. And, he wasn't going to be able to fight in September anyways, because he's having a kid. So that's obviously very important. And you don't want to be preparing for a fight against a dangerous guy when you're about to have a child. And here's the other thing I like about this. Aaron Pico will not do what Patchy Mix did heading into this fight. He will not show up at media day and be like, I'm looking right through this dude. I'm going right for Volkanovski. And then if he loses, saying, well, I took this fight on 6 weeks notice. I dared to be great. Like, we're not going to see any of that from Aaron Pico. He's going to be super humble. Yes, he'll be confident. Yes, he's going to believe he's going to win, but he's not going to say crazy stuff like Patchy Mix was saying, that he's going to look through Evliev, that Evliev's not that good, that Evliev's a journeyman, or any of that stuff. Pico will build this fight up properly, and I think Movsar will as well, because of the respect that Pico will send his way.
Aaron Pico, low-key, one of the most boring interviews in MMA as well. So
Aaron Pico. Well, he's kind of like, when I spoke to him recently, it's kind of like he's a deep guy, right? Like, when you speak to him, everything that he says, he comes out of his soul. Like, he's kind of very serious when he talks for a young dude that's in the fight game. But I will say, it's interesting what you mentioned, Mike, about, all right, well, we're going to get Aaron Pico. If he goes out there, let's say, fellas, Aaron Pico goes out there, stops Movsar, right? So difficult to do, no one able to do that. You'd think the UFC, especially Dana White, would be like, all right, title shot, right? Or do you think there's another fight for Pico if he wins here? It's just Movsar who would get a title shot if he wins. Mike?
Oh, he's getting a title shot if he wins. There's no doubt about it. Like, you got to strike while it's hot. Like, if he beats Movsar, if he goes out and stops him, Volk will get on Twitter like immediately after and be like, all right, kid, let's go. And the thing about Pico too, he's only 28. Because even if he loses to Movsar, like, it's not that big of a deal. He's got 7 or 8 good years to go if he wants to keep doing this for that long. It doesn't seem like he's going to want to do it for that long, but if he chooses to, it's not like he'll never get back. Like, Patchy's a little bit older, and Patchy's in a different kind of division right now where he may not get the type of opportunities. Like, I mean, if you lose to Mario Batista, that's just tough scenes. The way, not that Mario's not good, but the way the fan base has so much disdain for Mario. Like, Patchy winning would have been just a huge thing. I don't know, man. Like, Pico's in a really good spot. Like, as long as he's competitive with Movsar, like, he comes away with it with some kind of a moral victory here. You know what I mean? As long as he doesn't get dusted, he's okay.
I don't
agree with that.
No, not after the reaction to Patchy Mix. If he loses a split decision here, people will say he's absolutely useless. That's just the way it is. If that's just the way people hate the PFL, they hate Bellator. Like, half of the media has gone on. It's just like a joke shop talking about PFL every week. That's just the way it is. Like, every fighter now, I put up something good about, say, Rabadana's fighting this weekend. All the replies like, oh, these guys are rubbish. We saw Patchy Mix last week. That's just the way it is now. And it'll be the same for Pico. Like, at the end of the day, no one does any analysis on any of this if it's the reaction online. They're just going to look at that result. And if that result is not a win, I'll tell you what, he will be stuck in the rubbish heap with the rest of them. If it is a win, there'll be none of that. It'll be very, very different. But he has to win this fight. He doesn't have to win this fight for his future. I agree with what Mike said. If he loses the fight, he could win 2 or 3 more and find his way back. But for public opinion, he has to win this fight.
Sean, public opinion, Patchy Mix is out there saying he was going to submit everybody but his coach, and went out there and just stood there and got beat up for 3 rounds. That's why people are like, what the hell is going on with Patchy Mix? Also, after the fight, he started talking about, it was short notice, blah, blah, blah. Like, Patchy Mix set himself up to achieve great things and then went out there and just, in the great words of Suits, shat the bed a little bit on that performance. That's why people aren't happy with him. People don't mind PFL fighters, dude. No one thinks Aaron Pico is going to go out there and destroy Movsar. Like, if he does okay, I think that wins him a lot of street cred. I think people will be happy. Mike, I don't think people will mind if he puts in a decent performance.
I mean, Sean's not wrong. The fan base that the UFC currently is catering towards, they're going to rip Aaron Pico to shreds. Like, there's no doubt about it. They're going to be like, who the hell is this guy? See, the UFC is the best. Dana's the best. We love Dana. We love the UFC. You're bringing in this young kid who beat Bellator guys. Like, this guy's terrible. But then there's going to be the smart fan base who, at least like the way Pico, as Sean said, Pico seems like a guy who is media trained since he was 9. Like, the Bull Durham playbook, like, we do our best to help the team, like, all scripted stuff. Like, he's not going to say anything that's going to make a lot of headlines. And if he does, he'll never do it again. So I don't think he'll come in here and just be an ass about it and not rub people the wrong way immediately. Because the thing with Patchy was he came in and rubbed people the wrong way right away. They were excited to see him signed. They were ready to see him get this opportunity. Yeah, Patchy's in the UFC. And then he showed up to media day in the press conference and said the things he said. And at that point, you are on an island now. You have to deliver. And if you don't, you're in Jamal Hill territory, where it's like you talk all that shit about Alex Pereira and then you get booped. And then you're like, well, I was still hurt. I came back from this injury and I dared to do something that no one ever did before. No, Patchy didn't keep that same energy. So that didn't help him either. So yes, there will be some of the fan base that does that, but the Sheehans of the world, the Dennises, the me's, the ones who talk about the sport, like, Patchy took a huge step back with this loss. Like, I'm not saying he can never, ever get back to a title fight, but I'm pretty confident right now. I would bet money that Patchy is not fighting for a UFC belt. I think we saw his ceiling to some degree. Not saying that was like the best a Patchy Mix will see, but I learned a ton in that fight. Pico still has a ton of room to grow. Patchy's like almost a finished product. That's the difference between these two guys.
But also Patchy went out there, and it's like, I feel like if Patchy went out there against Batista, went to a game plan, showed us something, shot in for takedowns, made it an exciting fight, and then lost to Batista, we'd be like, you know what, fair play. Maybe this guy's a little bit overrated, like some of the casual fans might say, but this was a great fight. I just think because he stood there like a bag of bricks, he just got punched for 3 rounds, basically. And you're like, dude, what's he doing? He's not going to his game plan. He was supposed to submit this guy's coach. He isn't even trying to take him down. You know what I mean? I think that's a part of the reason why people are like, God damn, dude, this is just... And then it was Batista as well, like ultimate healing for some reason for the fans after the Jose Aldo thing. Let me ask you this, though, real quick before we move off the topic, Sean. Let's say Pico goes out here and is able to do this, right? Let's say he's able to beat Movsar. What does a Pico Alex Volkanovski fight even look like? Because I think Alex Volkanovski Movsar, we can see how that's going to go, right? Like Alex is going to try to keep Movsar at bay. He's going to try and use his distance and his striking to sort of pick him apart, blah, 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 blah. What do you think a Pico fight looks like with Alex Volkanovski?
I think it's a great technical fight because Pico, I think, has become a really good technical fighter at the base of it. Like when he started his career, it was all about like, I'm a better athlete than these guys. I'm going to show it. And then he got caught a few times and, kind of proved that there's more to this than just like freak athleticism. You have to, get behind the jab. You have to get your defense together. And it felt for a while he actually got, too much that way. He was kind of winning, too easily against opponents he should be, but I think he's at a really good stage now. Again, maybe a bit of ring rust and all that, but that'll be a fight down the line, as we said. Do you know what? It's a fight where he's going to be a big guy in that fight. I think against Volkanovski, I would be very, very, very slow to say anyone will outstrike Alexander Volkanovski unless your name is Ilia Topuria. But he needs to mix it up if he's going to fight Alexander Volkanovski. The exact opposite of what Patchy mixed it. Mix in that wrestling again. Excuse the pun. Be the guy who is not allowing Alexander Volkanovski to look good. If Alexander Volkanovski, if you're sitting there and you're watching the fight and goes, oh, that's something pretty, you're losing straight away. That's what Pico has to do. And he's not necessarily that sort of fighter, with the dog in him, as we like to say, but I think he needs a bit of that with the technical ability, striking, and with the wrestling ability as well. You have to be a mixed martial arts fighter to beat Volkanovski. Look how good Islam Makhachev is. And he had to do it. He had to fight him on the feet and fight him on the ground in the 2 fights we saw him. And obviously the second one on short notice a bit quicker and all of that. But it's a tough task. I think Demetrius Johnson's the greatest fighter of all time. I think Alexander, in terms of the best, right? We could talk about GOATs and what that means, but the best fighters. I think Volkanovski is the only one I've seen recently who can push him. Now, that was a couple of years ago, but for Pico to get over a guy like that, he has to be very, very, very good.
Mike? Dennis, you want some breaking news on your show?
Yes, let's go. Breaking news time here on Submission Radio Live.
I believe it's August 22nd. UFC Shanghai heavyweight bout. Waldo Cortez Acosta, coming off his big win, takes on Sergei Pavlocich. Multiple sources tell myself and the great Damon Martin. So there you go. WCA versus Sergei Pavlocich in Shanghai.
Wow. Breaking news. Mike, thank you so much for breaking that news here. Tell me, how do we feel about that fight? I'll go with you first, Mike. Do you like that fight?
Sure. Dude, God, man, heavyweight is just rough. Like it's rough. If Waldo go out there and go out there and just body up Sergei Pavlocich, he's got a good personality, man. Like I dig him. They need people so badly, but the UFC obviously sees something in him to jump him from one Sergei to the next, just in there getting Sergei Pavlocich. This guy was the boogeyman of this division not that long ago until he stepped in the octagon with Tom Aspinall. So they obviously, they skipped over the Derek Lewis test. They skipped over the Tai Tuivasa test. And they just went right to the Sergeis. So super interesting fight.
33 years old, coming off that Rosenstruck decision win over in 25. Sean, do you reckon that Pavlocich could get back in a position here to be the boogeyman of the division once again?
No. No.
Okay, great.
Like Tom Aspinall exposed him kind of, and I don't think he's getting back there again. Like what he's going to be is he's going to be a Volkov. You know, he's going to beat most guys in the heavyweight division. He's going to hang around there for a whole lot of fights, and he's probably never going to win the title unless Jon Jones, Aspinall, and Cyril Gane all decide to retire. So it's a good fight. Myself and my good friend Spencer Kite always have a joke that we see heavyweight fights all the time between number 7 and number 8, and in the end, what we're going to achieve is one is number 7 and one is number 8. Now this one is number 7 and number 4. So at the end of the day, one's probably going to be number 4 and the other one's going to be something around there. So yeah, it's and especially with the division, I know we're going to talk about it, but the division held up so much. You know, even if it was an important fight to get you right there, you know, what does that mean in the heavyweight division right now with no real champion? 2 champions, but you know, 2 paper champs.
You know what I love about it? We wanted to see Pavlocich fight Jon Jones, remember? We were like, hey, make him fight Jon Jones. Let's see how that fight looks like. By the way, here's the record. He has some good wins, like you guys said, over some OGs in the division, the Tai Tuivasa's, the Derek Lewis's, Curtis Blades, some big names there. Obviously, let's see what happens next. Actually, Volkov beat him, which is interesting. And also,
I want to see Waldo try to wrestle Sergei Pavlocich because no one has tried. Like, no one is trying to wrestle this man. And that's always been the thing. Like when he was nuking everybody, which is like, well, let's get him in there with a wrestler. Let's get him in there with someone to take him down. Like Alistair Overeem was able to take him down and control him. And that was like 8 years ago. But Waldo's going to shoot, man. That dude is going to try to shoot some takedowns. So I'm curious to see if Pavlocich has improved in that regard.
I wait to watch that one at 5 a.m.
Oh boy, man, I miss Alistair Overeem and those guys in the division. Just quickly, if you are in the chat, I want to shout out some people. You can become a Submission Radio member right now. We've got Lazy Bed, Old Man Dave,
Lazy Bed,
got Blood and Bear, all the notable names that probably pop up on your guys' shows as well. They support the MMA industry. But if you guys want to support Submission Radio, you guys can become you can join right now, become a member. It really helps the program. Also, keep throwing your questions in the chat. Try to get to them as much as we can. Also, shout out to Tyler. He keeps telling me to do intros and mention myself. That's very nice. I will. Thank you. Hank the Tank is in the chat. It's all happening. And by the way, Hank the Tank, bringing up how sharp Conor McGregor was looking just recently in that club. Looks like the guy is doing training camp in all the wrong ways. What was your reaction, fellas, when we saw this little bad boy in a club in Ibiza? According to the Sun here, I mean, not according, we could just see it right in front of us. Punches a fan a couple of times. The fan goes down. Up from the podium as well. Short little punches. A little bit of a, look at this. A little bit of a Brock Lesnar on top of mount. Short little sharp rabbit punches. Enough to put him out. And back to the dancing. Mike Heck, how much worse are things going to get for Conor McGregor before they get better? It seems like there's always something coming out these days about him.
That face I just made as I paused, that was my reaction. It was just like, okay, another day, another Conor story, him doing something real dumb. And just another reason why this man is never going to fight again. It's just such a bummer. Like it really is that we're missing out on all this. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know, man. I just don't know it. Like, there's nothing I can say that hasn't been said by so many other people before. It's just crazy. Like Sean, like for you, like seeing all this go down, it's just like one thing after the other. Like what was the response in your neck of the woods? Like your guys over there, like when you saw this, was it just like, all right, well, this is another thing we could check off.
Yeah. Is it like on the newspaper? Is it like front page news? Is it like on the news? Is it kind of like national type news stuff when this kind of crap happens? Not
sure, actually. I don't think it'd be in the news these days, but it'd be in all the newspapers and all that stuff. But yeah, like McGregor's just, I would say he's probably the most hated man in Ireland right now. You know,
really?
Yeah, everyone hates him. He is not at all like, you know, he's talking about running for president and throwing out all this idiocy on his Twitter and all that. But you know, it's funny. I saw someone posting the other day one of these engagement farming tweets of like, which fighter did you like at the start? And then you kind of don't like him anymore. And then someone replied, I think it was my guy Andy Hickey replied, imagine being Irish answering this question. You know? Well, that's just how we feel about it. It's, you know, Ben Folks wrote a great article about it, and people should go over and read that. And all I would add to that is, you know, he's he's become a disgrace to mixed martial arts, and it's, we don't really want the part of him anymore. But he's become a disgrace to Ireland as well, and we certainly don't want any part of him anymore. So yeah, no, he's no fans in Ireland anymore. I don't think he's many fans in mixed martial arts anymore. And do you know what? My reaction to that video was? Actually, felt a bit sorry for him. Like, his birthday is around now. I think he was born 2 weeks after me at the same time, and I can't imagine just being in a fucking nightclub and a pizza like that at my age. Like, it's just, what are you doing, man? You've like 4 or 5 kids at home, whatever. Be at home with them. Don't be out in fucking a pizza throwing punches at people. Like, give it up. That part of your life is over now. Let's move to the next part. Let's settle down and stop that bullshit. But I feel like that's not going to happen.
No. It's interesting that you mentioned that article that Ben read. Look at this little excerpt that was shared online. McGregor is a colossal embarrassment to the sport, but that's nothing new. That's been our reality for several years now. He's the worst of all worlds. He's a fighter that doesn't fight except when he's not supposed to. He was the biggest star in the UFC history, and all the association is still strong enough that he can continue to heap shame onto MMA while offering it nothing in return. Wow. Some good writing there by Ben, folks. Check out the entire article on A Crowd, I believe. But Mike, let's say this is Conor McGregor's legacy. Going out there, going to clubs, punching innocent people or people that are kind of being silly in the face and doing all sorts of crazy things on yachts. What is his legacy at this point as I bring up Conor McGregor's record? And it's crazy to look at, but it's like, dude, 2021 was the last time he fought. It was in that crazy fight to Dustin Poirier where he was yelling things about his wife as he was being dragged out of the octagon with a broken leg. Before that, obviously, we saw the big return. Donald Cerrone, that was the win. Khabib, like, you could actually make an argument, all right, maybe he didn't win, but he put in some kind of performance. And before that, man, we are looking at 2016, Eddie Alvarez. You could say that it's probably his apex mountain there outside of the Mayweather fight. Crazy to see Jose Aldo 2015, the big moment for him. What do you say about his legacy now, Mike, after all of this and basically no fighting for so long?
He has changed the UFC in so many ways. Some good, some bad. The good, they are not where they are now without him. Like, without question. What he did in the rise and what he did in 2016, which is still the greatest year in the history of the sport, is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, it truly is ridiculous and remarkable what this guy did. He convinced Dana White to let him box Floyd Mayweather, which was like the worst thing he could have ever done, probably for his entire career, because he got so much money from that and then lost. But like, true combat sports fans knew that that was going to be the result of that fight, even though a lot of people would tell you differently. And now, like, he's changed the sport in such a way where the UFC is unable to create new superstars because they don't want to deal with what they dealt with Conor anymore. Like, that was a big part of it. Like, there will never be another situation where a fighter is bigger than the UFC. So I guess Conor helped them in that regard. Like, okay, if we actually get a huge cross-promotional star that can go into all these different things, and they have others that you can make an argument for. Like, I think Max Holloway is a bigger star than people give him credit for because he transcends different places outside of just fighting. But Conor was just like, he's a fucking superstar. Like, this dude is like, he's everywhere. But now, like, the UFC doesn't have to deal with that anymore. They know that they're the big 3 letters. And because of Conor and because of how he's handled superstardom, the 3 letters will always be at the face of the company now. We'll still trot out Derek Lewis and Rodrigo Nascimento to headline cards because, you know what? We're the stars. It's not a single fighter anymore. Like, there are fighters people like, and this is legacy, man. Like, I don't know. His run will be one of the greatest ever, but just fell off a cliff, man. And he doesn't seem to care. Like, everyone sees it but him. So unbelievable. And then unbelievable. You know what I mean? Just, it's tough scenes, man. It's tough.
You had to kind of live through it, though. Like the Rousey, the McGregor, like it was towards the tail end of Lesnar, and it was still like we had Strikeforce people around. It's a couple of Pride people around. Like, it was such a crazy time to be a fan. Before we move off Conor, finally, Sean, is he fighting again? Do you think he comes back in like 3-4 years in his 40s and has a fight, in the UFC against, like, say, Nate Diaz? They're both like 45. At headlines like International Fight Week because they still have no one to headline those things. Elite Poirier is freshly retired. Do you think he comes back?
I always maintained he wouldn't go out the way he did, in a wheelchair basically and with a broken leg. But I'm becoming more and more unsure about that. Honestly, like, I know a lot of people don't really believe like the injury and stuff. I know for a fact he did break his toe foot or whatever it was at that stage, and he was like, the press conference was set for the next day. He was about to fight, and that wasn't too long ago. And there's no doubt about it as well. The UFC have held him back from getting back to action because of this TV deal and all. But I don't know, this political turn, obviously the court case over the last year has changed an awful lot for him. So I'll be honest, I'm probably 50-50 on it right now. I don't know. If I had to lean one way, I do think he fights because the UFC can make money out of him. And that's the biggest part of it all. And I think, we saw him out there. He's playing, losing 5-1 in a cup final in a pub soccer league not too long ago as well. So he obviously wants to do something. But whether he can make it through camp and make it to the fight is another question as well. He's always been very, very injury prone. But I don't know. I don't know. I'll be honest. I hope he doesn't. It'd be great if he doesn't, and just we don't see him anymore in MMA. It'd be fantastic.
Michael Chandler's 65 years old. He's like, all right, it's happening, guys. It's happening. In the retirement home. Okay, let me quickly talk about this division though. 155 lightweight, because fascinating things about to happen. Obviously, next weekend we've got UFC 317. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. We'll touch on that shortly. I know Sean Sheehan believes that Topuria is like the greatest fighter in the UFC. I want to challenge that in just a minute. But before I do, Justin Gaethje, we saw Ali Abdulaziz came on this show, said he's upset. We weren't quite 100% sure. Is this legit? Is this not? Then we saw him on the podcast talking about how he feels like the UFC has kind of done him in by not really wanting to offer him this next title shot. And if they don't, he's probably not going to fight again. Mike Heck, do you think that Justin Gaethje has a fair case here to be pissed off? Or do you think it's a situation where like he has to take a step back and look at the division? In terms of title shots, I mean, you got Arman in there, you got Paddy Pimblett in there. Like, does he need to be a little bit more realistic about what's happening in the division, especially with Ilia Topuria now fighting Charles Oliveira at UFC 317?
Yes and no. Like, I think he's got a case, right? He's got just as good a case, if not as good a case as Charles Oliveira does to this fight. Like, if you look at the last 4 fights, Gaethje's won 3 of them and Charles has only won 2. So, like, he does have some sort of a case. The other thing is some of the things he said, I don't agree with, but some of the things I do. He has helped the UFC out a lot. He didn't have to fight Max Holloway UFC 300, but he said they came to his house and were like, dude, we need this. We promised UFC 300 would be the greatest spectacle of all time. And what we gave fans is a bunch of doo-doo. So we need this fight to happen. And Justin's like, sure, I'll do that. And then he was supposed to fight Dan Hooker at UFC 313 back in March, and Dan Hooker gets hurt, and they're like, can you fight Rafael Fiziev, who's coming back, and he looks great, and he's been trying to find a fight. You mind taking this for us on like a week's notice? He's like, sure, I'll do that because I'm a company guy. And he got nothing in return. So I kind of get where he's coming from. Is he delusional a little bit? A little bit. I would say so. Like, he's not ahead of Arman Sarukian in this conversation. He's just not. And
also Paddy Pimblett, there's an argument there. He's got more fire behind him to be potential, especially if Ilia wins.
Justin is going to lose his mind if Ilia Topuria wins the title next week, because Ilia is not going to call it Justin Gaethje. He's going to call for Paddy Pimblett, and Paddy's going to be fighting for the belt before the end of this year. And Justin is going to blow a gasket if that happens. It's going to be incredible. But yeah, he's right and wrong, but I don't know what to tell you. Like, lightweight's just super weird, and yeah, he has a right to be pissed, but I mean, nothing's going to change. So
yeah, it's one of those situations where he's just got to kind of figure out a way to slot into what's happening, right, Sean? Like, if I'm Justin Gaethje here, I'm like, all right, I probably won't be getting the next title shot, especially if Ilia wins. I wait to see what happens at UFC 317, and then I go from there. But like, who do you think Justin Gaethje should fight next to secure that shot? Like, if I'm Gaethje, I like the look of this Paddy Pimblett fight. I'd rather fight him than like an Arman Sarukian next, for example. I try to secure that fight because I know that's going to lead me straight to a title shot, also a massive fight. But from Justin Gaethje's point of view, he's like, why do I have to take that fight? But I think that's probably the fight he should aim for, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about it being the one to take him to a title, because like if he was to beat someone like who's, I suppose, proven at the very top level and beat them, that might be a better way to take him to it. But I think it's the fight that makes more sense for the UFC. Like if they put Paddy Pimblett in there and he wins, then Paddy Pimblett's next in line, and he's the one you want next in line. Let's be honest, he's the money guy coming up there.
I think the fight for them is Paddy Pimblett, Dan Hooker for the UFC, because then because that's a great fight. I see both guys wanting to take that fight, and then I see one more win no matter who against. Paddy Pimblett's going to get the title shot for sure, right? Like no one's going to be like, oh, you know,
a very winnable fight for Paddy as well. And with all due respect, there aren't many winnable fights for Paddy towards the top of that division. But on Gaethje, I don't have that much sympathy for him. Like, to be fair, like he lost to Habib in a title fight, lost to Charles Oliveira in a title fight, lost to Max Holloway for the BMF, and is on a 1-fight win streak. Like, calm down demanding the title shots. Like, maybe win 1 or 2 more and then talk about title shots again. And I have a lot of respect for Justin Gaethje. He's a really, really good fighter. But the only reason he's crying and moaning about a title shot is because he was promised one. And as Mike alluded to earlier in the show, we know what promises mean to the UFC. A lot of lads, how many lads are still waiting for title shots off the UFC? So, yeah, I don't have great sympathy for Justin Gaethje. Like, the thing about that division is, the Gaethje, Poirier, Oliveira type mix has just been there for so long now that like we just want to see a little bit of new blood. And the problem is, like, Saryukin was that, and then he couldn't get there. Like Gamrot was almost there, and then he lost. And Paddy Pimblett's the next guy, but you put Paddy Pimblett in there with Gaethje, he'll maybe probably lose as well. It's very hard in that division because it's so good. Like all these fighters I mentioned are really, really good. It's so tough for them to get on the 3 or 4 fight win streak to get there. But look, whichever 2 fighters you throw together, it's going to be a really, really good fight anyway. But I think Topuria is look, the real fight to make was Makhachev and Topuria, and I'm pretty devastated that fight's not happening. We had one amazing fight, and now we've a fight where I think everyone knows who's going to win both of them, especially again, I feel like I'm taking the piss out of all the Australian fighters on the show today, but like Islam is definitely going to win that fight. And
come on, hold on, come on. You don't think there's a shot JDM could beat Islam? This is a dark horse that is untested. We haven't seen everything JDM can do.
Not a hope in hell. Not a hope in hell. He should be a minus 10,000 favorite for that fight. JDM's on the top 10 best welterweights in the world.
What?
No, he's not.
What did you just say?
Not in the top 10 best welterweights in the world. No,
he's the UFC champion. He just destroyed Bilal Muhammad.
You can't say that, Dennis. Jamal Hill was never the best light heavyweight in the world. Ever.
Daniel Cormier was the light heavyweight champion at one stage. Come on, like, what are we saying here?
Daniel Cormier? He was a great light heavyweight.
You ever hear Jon Jones? Or do you remember, he went up there and he was a double champion. Stephen Miocic beat him twice. He's the best champion in the world.
This is why this guy's the most hated man in Australia right now. Well, let's say you're wrong. Let's say you're wrong. Let's say you're wrong because you are wrong. You are wrong, Sean. Because JDM has a shot here against Islam Makhachev. It's a higher weight class. It's going to be all. Don't nod at me like that, mister. There's going to be all sorts of variables here. He's training with Alex Volkanovski and Craig Jones. He's going to at least hit Islam Makhachev a number of times. We've seen Islam with Dustin Poirier. We've seen him go through adversity. I want to see what that's like with JDM. I think it's going to be a great fight. Let's say you're wrong, Sean, and Islam does lose. Is his next fight back at lightweight against Ilia Topuria at 155? Does he go back to lightweight if things don't work out against JDM?
Yeah, I'd say he probably does. Although I saw Javier Mendez coming out this week and talking about him retiring. Was that with you? Maybe was it? Or maybe
Javier Mendez just basically said he probably has like 3 or 4 fights, but it was all just hearsay. Like honestly, no one knows how long he's got left. I would imagine if he loses a few fights, he'd be done, or if he maybe wins a couple of fights at welterweight for his legacy. I don't think he cares too much about things outside his legacy. He'd be done. Like no one really knows.
Yeah, like. It seems I might be totally wrong in this, but you talk about legacy there. I feel like Islam is trying to overtake Khabib's legacy, and that's the reason why he's gone up at the moment. Because like if he stayed at lightweight and won 3 or 4 more fights and retired or lost or whatever, then maybe some people will say he's better than Khabib. But the way people remember things, they're going to remember Khabib as the great. But if he goes on up and becomes a double champion, I think if there was a better champion at welterweight, it might help his cause even more. But yeah, I feel like sorry,
you can't stop. You can't stop, can you? You can't stop.
He's the sort of guy, though, like Khabib as well. Like, if he lost once, we might never see him again. Like Prince Nazim Hamed did it back in the day. That could be the case with Islam Makhachev, because normally, no one retires in MMA. We all know that. But like a guy like him and a guy like Khabib, they're not the same as most of these other guys. So that is a distinct possibility. If he was to lose, we mightn't see him back down at lightweight. We mightn't see him anywhere again.
Dude, he's going back to lightweight. He's fighting Ilia Topuria. What are you on about?
I'd love to see
that. He's the rightful lightweight champion. And then he says, look, the weight class wasn't right for me. Right, Mike? Easy out. Easy big fight. Would you not?
Sure.
Is Ilia
should just deny him, because that would be the funniest thing
ever.
He should just be like, no, I gave him his chance. He ran to welterweight. So no, you think he's going to come back and fight me? Absolutely not. Next, where's Patty? Let's go. I don't know, man. I'd like to see Islam get another win before he gets back in there. Like, there's got to be something you risk when you go for a second belt. You know what I mean? Like, there's this whole champ thing. This whole era has like ruined it. It drives me nuts. Like, Jed and I have been talking about this for 4 years, and people are so sick of it. But it means more to me to watch a guy defend his belt 7 times in a row than it is to defend it twice and go fight for a second belt. It just means so much more. It's so much more impressive than that. So, like, when these guys just go up, for a while, they didn't even take a risk. They could be like, well, if I lose, I can just go right back and defend my other belt. Like, you should have to. And I like Jed actually wrote about this, and he put a different caveat that I didn't think about. And I think it makes sense. If you're willing to make that move, if you are like, I'm moving up to welterweight, or in Ilya's case, I'm moving up to lightweight, they will never do this, but I would like to see this. I would like to see Ilya get a win at lightweight against fight Arman and win. And then it's like, cool. It's so much cooler if you win the belt that way. And then Islam getting a win. And then you're risking something. Like, you're putting it on the line. If I don't win this fight, I can't fight for the belt. I can't get a second title, but that's never going to happen. But at least we're taking steps, right? You have to vacate your other belt before you can move up. Like, at least we're taking that step, but like, it's still the same if you really think about it. Like, if Islam does lose, he's probably going to get an immediate lightweight title fight. And there's going to be a lot of pissed off people because of that, who are getting wins at lightweight while he's making this move to welterweight. So people are going to get skipped over. People are going to be pissed off. And yeah, that's it. That's what's going to happen.
It's fast. It's funny because the Topuria Charles Oliveira fight would have just been like the co-main event fight, not for a belt, right? But like, that would have been like under Islam versus like whatever, like Arman. And then that would have been like Ilya and Charles. And then if he would have beaten Charles, he would have fought Islam for the belt. But now this thing is for the belt. Sean Sheehan. Do you feel like people are underestimating Charles Oliveira going into this Ilya Topuria fight? We saw it happen over the weekend. Some of us made a lot of money betting on Kamaru Usman. Are people not thinking about the fact this is a weight class up? Topuria is a smaller guy. Charles Oliveira has a great kicking game. He's also dangerous in scrambles. Are they completely discounting Charles Oliveira here, or do you think the sentiment is right?
I think maybe a little bit overboard. I do think Topuria will win, and I think he'll win pretty comprehensively. What I would say, though, is, like, don't forget the Joy Herbert fight against Topuria, where, he knocked him down and hit him hard very, very early. And, can Charles Oliveira do a similar thing? Absolutely he can. He brings power early. He's no harm in throwing it, because you're like, what's the worst thing that can happen? The fight will end up on the ground, and he wants to fight on the ground anyway. So that's kind of loosened up his striking a little bit. I think the biggest issue in this fight, like, if you're to break down the actual fight itself, like, how does Oliveira win it? If it isn't something like very early and something very big and catching him unawares, it's tough to see, because Topuria is so good as a striker and so good at controlling where the fight takes place as well, but also so good at stopping lads, taking him down, and then has really, really good jiu-jitsu as well. Like, look at what Makhachev did to him. Like, it was... Charles Oliveira versus Makhachev is a fight that if it happened 1,000 times, Makhachev would win 1,000 times. Like, it's one of those fights. I think this one's a little bit less for some of the reasons you mentioned as well. Going up in weight class, how is that going to go? Putting on the extra weight. Topuria seems to be a guy whose preparation is absolutely immense. Like, he seems one of maybe the best fighter of all time, the way he prepares and the way he talks about it and everything like that. So you would think it won't be, but you don't know until it happens. We won't know until that Saturday night until it happens. But I think Topuria will outstrike him. I think he'll stop the takedowns, and I think he'll probably finish him late, maybe, or maybe win a decision.
Charles Oliveira's been in some crazy battles. Some of the crazy things with this matchup here is the height and reach. We've got Charles Oliveira 5'10", Ilia Topuria 5'7", Charles Oliveira 74-inch reach, Ilia Topuria 69-inch reach. But again, we've seen Topuria do really well against guys who are a little bit taller than him. There are fighters that actually do better, like the Alex Okanovskis, the Topurias, that love to work their way into the pocket and then unleash on these taller fighters. But Mike, do you anticipate some of these size differences to actually play a negative role in this fight for Topuria? And by the way, do you think that Charles Oliveira looks at that Alex Okanovski fight and is like, all right, I'm implementing kicks here. I'm working on this kicking game. I think there's an opportunity here to expand what Alex is doing in that Topuria fight to potentially make that a little bit more weaponized in our matchup at UFC 317.
I'm sure he is, but I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. Like Topuria will,
he might just run out there and just start trading, because that's what.
Which I actually think is the best thing he can do in this fight. He needs to go back to like the Charles Oliveira that is defending his belt, that was getting it all at wars with Chandler and Gaethje and Poirier, like just scrapping. Even if he gets knocked down a little bit, like gets back up, steals some of that mental warfare away from his opponent, who's like, I got him, but then you don't. I think that's his best chance to win, because the longer this fight goes, it doesn't just make Topuria stronger because he's younger and the better athlete and all that stuff, but he's just getting information. So he will, like, Topuria will eat a dozen leg kicks in the first round. He'll take kicks, and then he's just figuring out his timing. He's figuring it all out. And if you go back and watch that Volkanovski fight, towards the latter end of that first round, you saw Topuria start to figure things out. He was creeping closer and closer and closer. And by the time round 2 started, he knew he had him. Like, he's just such a freak like that. He's so good. He's just so good. And even with Topuria moving up, I just don't see a world where Charles Oliveira is able to go 25 minutes without getting his jaw jacked by Ilia Topuria at some point in this fight. So, I mean, stranger things have happened, but I'd be legitimately surprised if next week during the watch party, Charles Oliveira beats Ilia Topuria. I will be jaw on the floor like, whoa, cannot believe I just saw that, outside of like a freak injury or something like that.
Been getting crazy to see is all the scrambles. Maybe Topuria feels like he's a little bit too confident in his grappling, leaves something out for Oliveira. All sorts of things can happen. But Sean, surely Topuria can't move up to welterweight to fight Islam Makhachev if he's the welterweight champion. He's 5'7", Sean. He's 5'7".
If JDM was still there, he'd have an easy.
You're a sick fuck. That's your problem. You're a sick fuck.
One point as well. We were talking about the double champs, and Mike made some great points, and I completely agree with him. But I think a guy like Pantoja is respected probably as much or more than any champion in the division, and he's another easy defense coming up here now soon. Like,
easy, France power.
Set it all up, but
God, heel.
Him and Merab, 2 best champions in the UFC at the moment. This is it. So, the double champ thing is so played out. Let's get back to guys defending that belt over and over and over, and I think Pantoja is leading the way on that.
Yeah, like if Pants beats Kai, and then says like, "Look, I want to fight for a second belt," you actually won't get any complaints from me, because he's literally beat everybody except like Josh Van, who is just coming out of nowhere. Maybe if Josh Van goes out there and stops Brandon Royval, Pants will be like, all right, this young buck, this young whippersnapper, I'll try to teach him a vet lesson. Maybe I'll stick around for one more. But then other than that, like, who's he going to fight? Seriously, he's beat everybody. He's fought and beat every single guy. Even Manel Kape, he's already beat him. So there's nothing left.
We know the answer. Merab. That's the answer.
Yeah, I would actually be totally fine if he gets on the mic and says, Merab, where you at? I want your belt. You won't get any complaints out of me. But like when Bilal won the belt and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go one title defense and I'm going for Dricus. Like, come on, man. That's not what I want to hear. Go run off 5, 6, 7, and then you can have this. Then you can do this, and I won't get upset with you at all. But immediately, Usman wins a fight. He's like, I'm going to go fight Islam for the welterweight belt, and then go right up to fight DDP. Like, come on, man. Walk before you run.
Who wins a fight between Demetrius Johnson right now and Pants, in your opinion, Mike?
Like right now, or are we talking
right now? Nah, not prime. Let's say right now. Let's say he stops doing the show with Guru and decides to get back in the octagon. Who do you think wins?
Oh man, that's tough. I'd probably pick Pants, but like only
Great
because
fight.
Demetrius is older. Like just because he's older and he's been out of the game for a minute. Like he's still training and stuff. But Pants is just on fire, man. Like now, if we're talking like prime Pants versus like prime DJ against this version of Pants, I'm picking DJ without question. But right now, like right this second, if something happened to Kai Car France today and they announced Demetrius Johnson is fighting Pantoja in the co-main event of UFC 317, I'd probably pick Pantoja.
Wouldn't that be great though, man? I'd love to see that fight.
Oh, it'd be insane.
You agree?
It'd be insane.
I picked Demetrius Johnson. Like, if you think about
right now,
yeah, I still pick him. Maybe give him 6 months to prepare, but I would. If he took a short notice, probably.
Sean's out of control of this one, huh, Mike? He's just
I love
it. I'm taking everyone down.
If you think about it, Demetrius Johnson lost one fight to Adrian Moraes when he went over to one, and hasn't lost since. Didn't lose before in how many years? Got robbed against Henry Cejudo, as we all know. That fight, if you remember that knockout against Adrian Moraes, he's way bigger than him, first of all, and it was a grounded knee in one in his first fight there. Like, he was, not to make excuses for him now, but it was kind of, he fought him again and then he beat him and he knocked him out. Demetrius Johnson is the greatest fighter that has ever lived. Pantoja is a great fighter and a great champion, but he ain't Demetrius Johnson. And I'd still pick Demetrius Johnson. I'd probably pick him for another couple of years, to be honest, against anyone at that weight class in the world.
Skill for skill, like if we could take DJ back like 3 years, I'd feel way better about it. But he's gonna be 39. Like he's knocking on the door of 39. He'll be 39 in like 6 weeks. That's just for a flyweight, man. That's just a lot. And I don't think he's like legit cut to 125 in a long time. Because even when he's fighting for one, like flyweight is bantamweight. Like you didn't have to make those big weight cuts. And Pants has been doing it over and over and over again. 39-year-old who hasn't cut in a long time, having to cut to 125 to fight Pants. There's just a lot of like different variables to this, which is why I would lean Pants like ever so slightly. I wouldn't pick Pants over DJ like Sean is picking Islam over JDM or Pants over KKF or anybody against any Australian champion.
That was a joke. Do you know what's a better question though? Demetrius Johnson against Marab. What a fight that would be. God.
Oh my God, dude. Missed out so much.
Let's make that happen.
While we're speaking about GOATs, guys, I want to quickly talk about Baku. But before I talk about that, Jon Jones deadline. Some news from Dana White. We've got a deadline for Jon Jones.
Why
this is the line, and then every week it's like, we've got another deadline, another deadline, another deadline. It's going to be a week away from the card. There's another deadline, another deadline, another deadline. We've seen, obviously, Tom Aspinall's, maybe cameraman leak that potentially he's getting ready for Gane, potentially he's getting ready for this, for that. And I mean, if you're Tom Aspinall, it just makes sense. Like, you want to just be ready, whatever the thing is. And I'm sure that he's game planning for everybody because there's no real confirmation that Jon Jones is going to do this. But Sean, is this a legit deadline or is this just the deadline before the deadline? Then there's that other deadline. And of course, don't forget about the other deadline that Dana White forgot to mention.
Yeah, this is a George R. Martin deadline, I think, here from Jon Jones. And, we might all be dead before we ever fucking see it. I don't know. Like, I kind of like to mess around with the Tom Aspinall fans, as you can kind of guess. But I don't really mind Jon Jones doing what he wants. And I think people have kind of picked out the wrong person to blame here. The people to blame here are the UFC. Like, at the end of the day, we how many times have we said it? They're the ones in control of everyone. Mike said it. They let Conor McGregor be bigger than the UFC, and they'll never let anyone do that again. Jon Jones, especially considering the relationship they've had, so they would happily take the belt from Jon Jones if they wanted to. But we know, again, the TV deal is coming up. The negotiations are either happening at the moment or just finished, and that might be dependent on when this fight happens. Like, you could very well see this fight being the 1st of January or something like that, or the first Saturday in January, or the last, the last one of the year or something. But I don't know. I hope it happens. And do you know who should hope it happens more than anyone? Tom Aspinall, because he needs Jon. He needs Jon Jones, but who's he going to fight? Jonathan Almeida. Oh, great, brilliant. I like Jonathan Almeida. I really like him. Who's he going to fight? Sergei Pavlocich again. Oh, fantastic, brilliant. What's Tom Aspinall going to prove beating them lads unless Francis Ngannou comes back to the UFC, which is not going to happen. And this idiocy about cross promotion that people keep going on about, maybe the dumbest conversation in the history of fucking MMA, that's not going to happen. He needs Jon Jones because Tom Aspinall, as much as I kind of kid about him, he could be a massive, massive star for himself. He could make a lot of money, a massive star for the UFC. And he could do it without Jon Jones. But if he does it with Jon Jones and he beats Jon Jones and changes his legacy and, maybe even beats him twice if Jon Jones tries to come back, which I think he might, what a star Tom Aspinall would be then. And Tom needs that. He needs it. The UFC need it. That fight has to happen. If we have to wait a little bit longer, will I be okay if it happens? Yes. I'd rather wait another 6 months and that fight happen than have Tom Aspinall fight someone else and Jon Jones never fight again. I think, let's. But you know what they should do? Just give us a fucking date. Just tell us when it's happening. If it's happening next February and we have a date, at least everyone can be happy then and we'll know. But I think that's been the biggest issue here in all of this. But it's the UFC. It's not Jon Jones. If he wants to retire, he should be allowed to retire. If he wants to sit out for a year or 2 years, he should be allowed to do that. The UFC shouldn't do that. Or maybe. I don't know. But they are allowing him to do that whichever way. So they're the ones in control here. And to blame.
Mike, deadline thoughts?
He's going to fight Alex Pereira. Like, that's what's going to happen. They're going to book Aspinall versus Pereira. They're going to if we can't get Jon, we're going to stick it to Jon by giving Tom the guy that Jon wanted to fight. Jon wanted to fight Pereira. He even said after he beat Stipe, take the belt from me so I can fight Alex Pereira. Like, this is the fight he wants. This is him being a prize fighter because he knows he will kill Alex Pereira. He will tackle Alex Pereira and he will beat him. It's an easier matchup where he would have made a lot more money than fighting Tom Aspinall at the time. Is that changed now? I'm not really sure. But here's how you become a star, as Sean was saying. You fight. That's how you get over. That's how Kevin Holland is one of the highest paid guys in the UFC because he got over by fighting. And Tom not fighting just hurts him so much. And there you see Alex Pereira, 243, and he can get bigger. He can get bigger. Let's give Pereira his chance. Let's give him his opportunity to fight for a third belt. Nobody wants to see Pereira fight Magomed Ankalaev again. Nobody wants to see that. So just give him a shot.
So do we just skip it? Do we just skip it for now? Can we do that? Are we allowed to do that? Sean, can we do that?
Strip Jon of the belt. Tom is a star, not a huge star, but Tom is already the baby face of this situation in such a big way because of how this is all laid out. He goes in there and takes Jon's food and beats him and then just says, look, I don't even care about Jon anymore, which he should have done from jump street. He should have just declared himself the undisputed heavyweight champion a year ago, and we wouldn't even be in this mess with Tom trying to kind of dig himself out of this hole that he sort of dug himself into. But I get where he's coming from. And sure, it'd be awesome if he could fight Jon Jones. But at this point, the best way to get Jon Jones is to ignore him and then try to match his greatness in some way by winning fights all the time. And maybe if Jon watches Tom Aspinall defend the undisputed title more than Stipe did, Tom becomes the best champion, not the longest rating interim champion. Now he has that fucking record and it drives you crazy. But if he runs off like 4 or 5 title defenses, because Tom's the dude who will fight like 3 times a year. Let Tom beat everybody. I don't even care who the opponent is. Give him Pereira. Give him Derek Lewis if he beats Taliesin Teixeira. I do not care. I want to see this guy fight. Let's get him some finishes in front of raucous crowds. And the more this guy fights, the more he's going to get over. And then at that point, Jon Jones is going to sit back and be like, shit, I should have fought this dude when I had the chance. Now I'm going to step up and try to fight him. And then Tom just might nuke him then at that point. Tom's going to be so over in this situation. But look, I do agree with Sean on one point. If Dana White shows up at a press conference next week before UFC 317, he says, yo, January 3rd, Jones Aspinall, Netflix, first main event. Cool. But if we're not doing that, like we can't, it's gone from I 100% guarantee this fight is being made to, well, we'll give him 2 more weeks. What the fuck, man? Like, this is so frustrating that we have to continue to talk about. Just book Aspinall and Pereira and let's move on, for the love of God.
People are getting sick of it from both sides as well. And I said this early, like, and I think Michael alluded, Aspinall should have been fighting all along. Like, they should have just been giving him fight after fight after fight. And again, that's how you draw Jon Jones out, maybe. But like, he should have been earning money. Let's be honest as well. apart from Silgan, maybe there's very few people going to even give him a fight in that heavyweight division. Maybe Joel Talamida as well, but like those lads, you can avoid them and do other fights and put him in like. That was a big mistake because it's not that he's gone cold, but he's not as hot as he once was. I think people are frustrated with him as well as Jon Jones. It's way worse for Jon Jones, no doubt about it. But it's gone on way too long now. It's gone on way too long, and they have to clarify it. Before the next pay-per-view, they have to do it. Just let's get going with it.
Here's a photo of me once it gets confirmed. It's been 84 years. All right, let's talk about the big Baku card. And by the way, I wouldn't be mad if like someone just slotted it against Ankalaev, right? Like to your point, Mike, if it's not Pereira, like are people going to be rioting in the streets if he just fights like whoever he fights in the division? The division isn't really in a place anyway where anyone cares too much about 205. But there's a pivotal fight here happening this weekend that could maybe determine a potential challenger for Ankalaev. Let's have a look at the card just quickly. Obviously, we got Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree in a very fan-friendly light heavyweight main event that's going to be happening in a very random place in Baku. But nevertheless, we're going to get to see it. How important, how pivotal, Sean, do you think is this fight between Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree during a time like we just mentioned where Pereira can just move up to heavyweight and Ankalaev kind of struggles to find opponents where people want to tune in maybe as much? And both of these guys are fun fights for Ankalaev.
Yeah, could be very pivotal. Like considering, as you said, Pereira looks like he's heavyweight now. Ulberg, probably the next guy in line, but he did blow people away last time out. And, both of these guys were there or thereabouts over, obviously Jamal Hill was the champion and Khalil Roundtree, as someone pointed out the other day, he got the win 4 rounds with Alex Pereira championship. But I think he showed in that fight how good he can be. It's a very interesting, like crosswords fight is the wrong way to put it, but I think it's a crosswords of maybe where these guys sit in the elite of that division, because Jamal Hill was on a trajectory to become, he was never the best light heavyweight in the world, but he was on the trajectory to maybe become that. Thanks to Daniel Cormier, obviously he ruptured his Achilles and, he kind of stalled out, lost the title, and he just, has kind of regressed more than progressed since then. Whereas Khalil Roundtree the whole time has been progressing and progressing and progressing. And, what would the difference in ceiling be? I would say Jamal Hill maybe has a higher ceiling if we were to look over the next 5 years, but it's very hard to regress and then progress again in a career where you've already been a champion. So that's no guarantee by any means. So the fight this weekend is very, very interesting. Like if Jamal Hill can win it, maybe that progress starts again and maybe he goes to the next level, gets a big fight, maybe even a title fight next. But if he doesn't, it's really, really tough to put all those losses together and then continue to bounce back in that division. So huge fight. I'll give you my pick. My pick is Khalil. My pick is Khalil Roundtree. I think he'll win. And I actually, funnily enough, I actually predicted Jamal Hill in 2022, I think, would be the champion. And he became the champ. I do my ball predictions for the year, and he became champion on like the 7th of January 23 or something. So I got it wrong, but I'm a genius technically. But yeah, I still don't think he'll win.
Technically. I always thought Jamal Hill should consider a move down to middleweight. I always thought he was a little bit small for light heavyweight, but I don't know. Maybe there's something going on there. It looks like physically, maybe he just prefers to be at the weight class. Who do you think would be the bigger fight for Ankalaev, Mike, or the more interesting fight between Hill and Khalil?
Oh God, Jesus. Yuri Prochazka? Like, can I go off the board? Like that would be a little more interesting to me because he's just such a maniac and you just never know what to expect from Yuri, but probably Roundtree, I guess. But that's just the problem, like with this division right now. Here's like what you do with this division. Like, who knows? Yuri is focused on his education right now, so we should just let him do that. At this point. So at this point, even though it hurts my soul, I'm taking Yuri out of the championship equation for right now. You do Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree, and then you book Carlos Ulberg against Dominic Reyes. And if Dominic Reyes beats Carlos Ulberg, you give him a title shot. Because what a story that would be if Dominic Reyes, the man who beat Jon Jones, and his career we were all taking shovels and pouring dirt on top of this man's grave. And now all of a sudden he gets another chance to become champion. What a story. We just throw him to Ankalaev. He probably loses, but what if he wins? What if he wins? Either way, Reyes gets back to a title fight. We cash that ticket in one last time, and then we let the division, because light heavyweight's awful. It's just so bad. It's such a terrible division. Heavyweight's worse, but light heavyweight's right there. I don't know, man. Dominic Reyes is probably the most interesting one because of the story behind it, but I don't know. Ankalaev's just like, he's so good. Like, he's a good fighter and he beats all of these guys. So I don't know if like any of them are all that interesting to me outside of Yuri, but as I said, he's not in the conversation right now.
I saw some reports, but I don't think they're official. People saying, "Oh, maybe it's Yuri and Carlos Ulberg," but I don't think there's any truth to that. There's the division right there, the top 10. Sean, is this kind of like the bleakest the division's looked in a while, or was there a bleaker time in your opinion?
No, it's been pretty bleak for a good long while now. Do you know one? You know, Mike said they're going back to Shanghai there. What about Zhang Mingyang? I love him. I think he's really
such a beast.
Throw him in there. You know, headline it. Let's go. Let's do it now.
Headline it.
Yeah, let's go. Him versus.
Is there like a scenario where there's like negative pay-per-view buys, where like the UFC pays people to watch it and it's like minus pay-per-view buys? Because we'd be looking at that scenario.
You bring him back to me, Johnson again, or maybe. Like, what is there really? What is there really in that division? Like the Pereira Ankalaev fight was really close in retrospect. Maybe at the time it didn't seem that. And that's probably the fight to make again. But as Mike said, does anyone really want to see it? Like, they delayed it long enough, putting Ankalaev in there by giving Khalil Roundtree the shot. Maybe they should have got someone before Ankalaev again. But that's the problem when we have meritocracy. It just doesn't work in the sport. But yeah, there you go.
Let me just quickly, before we finish up, Fiziev is obviously fighting Bahamondes. What are you guys anticipating from this fight, man? People sort of talking about the size difference here, but like, this is pretty cool to see Fiz get a fight over there, you know, and get a chance to co-main this thing. Mikey, what are you feeling about this one?
I friggin' love this fight. This fight absolutely rocks. I don't know what to expect. I think Fiziev, like, when I'm torn on a fight, I typically go with the guy who has bigger fight experience, and that's Fiziev by a mile here. Bahamondes is big. He's tall. He's talented as hell. Trains with Bilal Muhammad, trains all those guys, and they put him through the wood chipper, man. He's really good. I've heard nothing but incredible things about him over the years. And Fiziev is just like, he's so fun to watch. Like, Fiziev is a guy who like can lose and just like, all right, cool. Who's he going to fight next? Like, people still want to matchmake for Fiziev because they just like him. He's fun. He doesn't say anything ridiculous. He just goes in there and scraps, and it's enjoyable as hell to watch Rafael Fiziev work. So I lean Fiziev here, but it wouldn't shock me if Bahamondes went in there and won like a scrappy 29-28 decision. It really wouldn't. I don't think he's going to go in there and ice Fiziev because no one can ice that man. He's an absolute demon. Bahamondes is very good though. So the lean is Fiziev, but I don't even care, man. I just want to see these two guys fight. It's going to be awesome.
Before you go, Sean, how about this height and the change in height, the difference in height here? Fiziev 5'8", Bahamondes 6'3". It's going to be it's going to be great to see them in the octagon together. But it's interesting to say that Fiziev's reach is 71.5, while Bahamondes is 75.5. So the reach isn't that crazy. But Sean, what do you think here? Who do you think is going to get it done?
I agree with Mike. I think Fiziev will just about shade it. Like, one of my bets of the week is this fight to go to a decision. And I'm not sure who will win, but I think that's the way it will go. And, you know, Fiziev is one of those guys, you're thinking like he's lost, you know, a lot of fights. Okay, he has more lost than his record than you would expect a guy that good to have, right? At that level, you kind of thought he would get to the level he'd beat some of those guys, and maybe he'd lose at the very, very top. So often when those guys drop down a slight level, with no disrespect to Ignacio at all, they tend to win. So I think you will win that. But yeah, this is an interesting card. You know, that we talked about the PFL Bellator stuff earlier on. We've Kuniev coming in here against Blades. He's, you know, he only fought, I think, once or twice over in PFL, but he's a pretty good fighter, and he's big underdog there. And Tafik Musayev as well, you know, who kind of had a similar path to Yuri Prochazka over in Japan, and then coming over in Bellator, and did he fight in the PFL as well? Maybe once. He's taking on Oral Boy. That's a really, really good
love
fight.
That fight, dude.
Very interesting.
I love that fight.
We got Ben Elliott on the undercard as well, moving from a couple of weeks ago. This is actually a pretty good card to be honest, I know sometimes we look at these cards and I'm like, oh, that's good, but is it because everything else was so terrible for the last few weeks? But no, I actually think this one is pretty good. So I'm looking forward to seeing this, and I think it's a little bit earlier as well, so that's good.
Yeah, DJ
Yes, it sure is.
These two top fights should be action. What about, you mentioned the PFL before we wrap, Kevin Lee back in rotation here at PFL. Mike, Kevin Lee, someone that it's like, first he's retired, then he's not, then he, this and that. We're on a run here. I know Sean's got a big take coming up. Before you go, Sean, what do you make of Kevin Lee having a crack at the PFL, Mike? Should he just be in the UFC? We need name value. Why not just go in the UFC?
Look, Kevin Lee, when he said put me on the Contender Series, they absolutely should have done that. That would have been incredible theater. And I always say, like, the Contender Series should be, they should put in like guys who were once in, or guys who are about to get cut to fight each other.
That'd
to
be
like
great.
stay in.
Yeah, like the comeback.
Like, that's
series
incredible.
Of Contenders or something. Yeah.
And good for Kevin Lee. Dude's trying to sue the GFL and all this shit. But boy, did he drew an evil card here, man. He is fighting Gaethje Rabadanov, who is, all respect to Kevin Lee for getting in there and competing. Respect. But he's about to get got real bad in the main event of this card. Like I said, like, Oliveira beating Ilya would surprise me. If Kevin Lee like straight up beats Gaethje Rabadanov, like that might be the most shocking thing that has happened in 2025. Truly. Rabadanov is a monster. He is so good. He might be the most underrated fighter in the entire sport right now because he's in PFL. Dude, he's absolute nightmare for everybody. You throw him in the UFC right now, I'd be so pumped. Like, we did our fantasy draft of like drafting fighters for your organization. I had the UFC, and people think I wasted a pick. I didn't. I drafted Gaethje Rabadanov because I want to see how good he really is. And I think he can compete with the top dudes in the UFC right this second. But poor Kevin Lee, oof, this man just continues to draw the short straw, and I hope he's getting a big bag of money, because this is not going to go well for him.
Yeah, just having a look here, Sean, before you sort of read the obituary. Oh, let me bring this up for Kevin Lee. A little record here to give everybody a little hindsight. Obviously, some of the recent wins for Rabadanov as he goes into this Lee fight. Look at this. Some nice wins here. Obviously, the guy is a beast, 31 years old, so he's still in his prime. We're looking at a guy who's basically been out of the UFC system, but has been a killer, well-known in Sambo, a ton of fights. Total fights 30, wins 25, but that doesn't really paint the picture, does it, Sean? What do you think is going to happen?
He's an amazing fighter. If you were to do it like a draft for who's the best fighter outside of the UFC right now, if he isn't in the top 2 or 3, there's something badly wrong here. Like, I went back and obviously doing the preview for this card and watched a couple of these fights again, and this guy just does everything so well. He's an elite striker, an elite grappler. He just dusted Mark Chikasi in his ass fight. Like, I had a kind of, I sure I put out a clip there of me the other day saying, like, if I had to rank him in the or if I had to definitely pick a UFC lightweight to beat him, I'd only pick one, and that would be Ilia Topuria. Like, no, other people might beat him, but
Islam Makhachev?
He's a welterweight. He's a welterweight now. I probably would be, but this
I think they train together anyway.
Yeah, they do indeed. But he is so good. He is absolutely brilliant. And this is a good card. PFL have had a wonderful year. Like, the first 3 cards of the year were absolutely brilliant. The 4th one was okay. The one at the weekend wasn't amazing, but this one is looking really good. Again, there's 6 semifinals on this, and some good stuff in it as well. Alfie Davis, Bryn Premise should be a bit of a banger, and then the bantamweights as well are pretty good as well. So yeah, looking forward to it. And Derek Kelly from Ireland as well is on the card as well. So he's a B7-0 show. Interesting stuff. And the number 1 contender at lightweight as well, which is not contentious at all. Paul Hughes is a mind. Archie Colgan and Mansour Barnaoui there. No problem, guys. Fight away and have Usman next. I'm sure everyone's happy with that.
Awesome. Well, look, there's things happening in the space. Obviously, next week, we've got the big International Fight Week card as well. So as we wrap up, Mike, let me know what's coming up in MMA fighting. We've got a big week next week. Obviously, you guys do the watch party. You got the People's Pre-Show, the Q&As. What's cooking for International Fight Week on MMA fighting for everybody out there?
I mean, Jose will be there and doing his thing, the Swiss Army knife of MMA fighting. He'll be at all the events, all the different things going on. Yeah, I'm back. Oddly enough, in about 12 minutes from right now, I'm going to speak to Kai Kara France, the man who looking to pull off the big upset against Alexander Pantoja next week. And
don't tell him anything that Sean said, please.
I mean, I'm sure he's heard it all from a lot of other people, but that's a conversation for another day. But looking forward to that. Yeah, just follow us because you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes I'll interview these fighters like in an hour's notice, and kind of like today. So it is what it is. Man. Stick with us. It's going to be awesome.
One of my favorite watch parties out there. Definitely you and Jed for this one, right? For this watch party.
We're not throwing shade at media time, but anyway, we leave that aside.
What about you, Sean? What's cooking over there for the big fights coming up? What do people need to check out?
Sure,
you got your own show. There's a lot of things happening.
And sure, dog. That's where you get your results. That's where you get everyone's records from all time. So I'll go there and go for the Sheehan show 3 times a week. My bets every week as well. And the Severe MMA podcast every Monday morning is the place to go, and in Patreon as well over with the Severe MMA. So if you want to.
Did you have Kamaru Usman or Buckley in your picks?
I had Kamaru Usman via decision at +5.
I'm going to go back and check. I don't believe you.
I hit 2 flyers this year, 2 out of 18, and that was 1. So you made a good week.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, fellas. That is it for Submission Radio Live here. Please take a moment to become a member and support the channel. Of course, check out Manscaped, 15% off. We'll get you smooth balls, a smooth face, and of course, Saley, 15% off for new subscribers. That's saley.com/submission. Links in the description below. There he is, Mike Heck. There he is, Sean Sheehan. There I am, Dennis Shkradov. That is it for Submission Radio Live. Take care, everybody.